This is the iX1, BMW's new entry-level electric car, which you may have noticed looks nothing like BMW's previous all-electric entry-level electric car, the i3. Yes, it's a compact SUV, just like everybody else's compact SUV. But is this just another entry into an already busy market? I'm here somewhere in the Cotswolds to have a look at this iX1 today. So here are our 6 favourite things about the new BMW iX1.
Now I know what you're thinking. This isn't an avant-garde, road-going concept car made from pure unobtainium like the i3 was. It's a bit, well, normal. But here's the thing, much as we love the i3 for its crazy doors and weird looks, the slightly unpalatable truth for us geeks and dreamers is a car like this is going to be more practical, usable, and dare I say it, more visually acceptable to a much bigger audience.
That means this structure has been designed to accommodate both an electric drivetrain and a petrol and diesel one. Now that does have its downsides, but we'll come on to that a bit later. I'll let you make your own mind up whether you think this is a pleasing bit of design or not, but by modern BMW standards, it's all very nicely proportioned. If you're thinking about going electric but you don't want to telegraph it to the world, this could be the perfect car for you. You don't even need to have the blue accents that often come with BMW i products. You can delete those as an option. The interior I like. You've got this lovely twin screen infotainment screen here. It's curved, so it's easier to reach the furthest reaches of it. The interior quality is really good, normal top-notch BMW stuff. And if you're leggy like me, you'll be pleased to know there's plenty of reach and rake adjustment on the seats and the steering wheel. And I really like this floating center console. It puts all the major controls like the drive selector exactly where you want them to be. But you've also got all this kind of useful space under here with a phone charger there. It's nice not to have a big central unit there to pinch your legs in as you're driving.
BMW has absorbed a lot of the cabin functions into the infotainment system. So where the old X1 had buttons for things like the heating, this one doesn't. That said, the system is quick to react and the quality of the screen is absolutely first rate.
Now interestingly, this is the 8th generation of BMW's iDrive system, and it's the first one that does away without the normal iDrive wheel. Now BMW say this is because it's a touchscreen, it's a lot easier to reach, but I'm not sure. I find it a little bit more distracting to use the touchscreen, especially there's a lot of tiles on there, there's a lot of things going on. There's also some shortcut buttons, but when you're sitting in the normal driving position, they're hidden, so you have to bend your head around to have a look at where they are. Back here, it's a bit disappointing, to be honest. The problem with building a car that can accept multiple fuels, so petrol, diesel and electric, is that you always end up with a degree of compromise, certainly in terms of cabin space. I've got this front seat set up for me and it's quite tight on space. You've also got a small, it's not a huge one, but you get a small transmission tunnel here, and it does mean that your feet are stuck in the same position for the whole journey. The boot, it has to be said, is very good for this size of car. There's 490 litres of space in here, and it comes with a fantastic square opening. And that sounds really dull, but it really matters when you're trying to load in big things like a bike or a couple of golden retrievers. There's also this little handy cubby here for your cables, and if you tumble the seats down, you get 1,495 litres of space. Frunk fans, I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed because the iX1 doesn't have one. You can, however, put things on the roof and you can tow. The iX1 is rated for up to 1,200 kilos for towing. Now, underneath the floor of this iX1 is a 67 kilowatt-hour battery, which delivers a WLTP range of 272 miles. Now, we reckon that'll be about 220, 230 in the real world range. And that's not really brilliant for a 50 grand car. We're at a stage now where with every new electric car that's being launched, it seems to move the game on in terms of range. I'm not entirely sure this does. Like the battery and range, the iX1's charging stats are good rather than spectacular. It can take a DC charge on a rapid charger at 130 kilowatts and can be spec'd with a 22 kilowatt AC onboard charger if you're happy to hit the options list. 11 kilowatts is the standard figure if you don't. A 10 to 80% charge on a 150 kilowatt charger will take around 30 minutes on this, or if you're looking to do a quick splash and dash, you'll get around 75 miles in 10 minutes.
There's also some clever stuff going on with the infotainment system. If you use the built-in navigation, the range guessometer is a lot more accurate because it knows the kind of roads you'll be using. And if you put a charger as your destination or waypoint, the car will precondition the battery to make sure it's at the perfect temperature to accept a charge. which, as no doubt many of you will point out in the comments below, is something Tesla has been doing for years. Better late than never, right? As for the bits that make it go, the iX1 has motors front and rear, but in normal conditions it's the one at the front that does all the hard graft. Drive is split between the front and back axles by a very clever transfer system that was developed for the iX. Combined, they generate 268 horsepower, but that can rise to 308 horsepower if you use the boost paddle behind the steering wheel. It gives you a 40 brake horsepower boost for 10 seconds, so if you absolutely have to win the traffic light Grand Prix, it's a really useful thing to have.
And it does feel properly quick. BMW claim a 0 to 62 time of 5.7 seconds, and it feels every bit as quick as those figures suggest. Like all electric cars, there's a great wodge of torque that comes through and pushes you back into these lovely seats every time you hit the throttle. And if you're one of those drivers who loves to fiddle with the regen as you're driving, well, this is going to be the perfect car for you. There are 4 levels of regen available in the iX1. We're in adaptive now, which is really quite clever because it uses information from the navigation system and cameras at the front of the car to automatically adjust the amount of regen that comes in as you're driving. So for example, when you're on a motorway, it'll coast a lot more, and when you're driving in towns, or if the camera knows that you're coming up to a corner, like this one up here, it'll regen a little bit harder than it would normally. It works really well. And if you don't like the adaptive regen, and it does take a bit of getting used to, you can manually select it by pressing this button here and select one of 3 different levels. And if you want one pedal driving, you just click into B on the drive selector. Now, in terms of ride quality, the iX1 is pretty good. If you're moving to this car after an i3, it's going to feel like an absolute magic carpet. It's on 20-inch wheels, this car, and you can feel the firmness, but generally speaking, it absorbs bumps really well. Now, the iX1 comes with some interesting driving modes. If you're used to sport, eco, normal, that kind of thing, you'll be in for a bit of a surprise because there are quite a few different modes that I've never seen before. We can obviously choose sport, which gives you maximum power, efficient, which maximizes the amount of regen and generally tries to extend your range, but there's also one called expressive. I'm going to hit that now. Oh, the seat massaging comes in, and we've got some sort of relaxing tunes coming through the stereo, which is a bit unusual. Then you have relax, which, just press that, see what that does. Oh, it says we're relaxed driving in a pleasant atmosphere. The dash display is only giving me the speed I'm doing. I can hear some more relaxing tunes through the stereo. There's also a mode called digital art, which if I select that, well, it's drawn the dashboard with a sort of fireworks sort of picture, and everything else is kind of gone purple. And again, it just not entirely sure what the point of it is, but it's nice to have. If you select sport mode, you have the full power all the time, so that's the full 308 horsepower driving both front and rear axles. If you don't want all the other bits that come with sport mode, but you do need to have a little extra push of power to get away from the lights or overtake someone, you can use this boost lever here on the steering wheel. It gives you a 10-second burst of full power, and it counts it down on the little timer on the dashboard to show you how long you've got left. In terms of efficiency, it's a bit hard to tell. We've only been driving the car for 20 minutes, and the team at BMW reset all the values before we left. It's showing 3.1 miles per kilowatt for the short drive we've been on so far, but we have been testing sport mode and the boost. But I would expect it to be a little bit higher on normal roads. We'll have to wait until we get the car in the UK early next year to find out what it can really do.
In terms of price, the iX1 starts at £52,255 for the X-Line trim. That gets you stuff like 18-inch wheels, parking sensors and a rear-view camera, along with those cool interior screens as standard. Upgrade to the M Sport trim, which costs £54,960, and you get 19-inch wheels, adaptive suspension, adaptive LED headlights and wireless charging. The order books for the iX1 are open now, and the first UK customers will take delivery in late January.
So what's the verdict? Well, if the i3 hadn't existed, we'd be saying this is a perfectly competent electric SUV. But the fact that it does replace the i3 unofficially as BMW's entry-level electric car, we have to look at it in a slightly different way. I'm sure this will sell far more cars to far more people who never would have considered buying an i3, but you can't help feeling that a bit of the BMW magic has been lost along the way. You can check out the full review over on electrifying.com for all the important facts and stats. We'll be driving a UK version of this car early next year, so make sure you've subscribed to the YouTube channel to be notified when it arrives.